Good afternoon, Internet fam. How y'all doing today? It's your boy TC with another episode of CS Files. For those that don't quite know what that means, common sense. This is a series of chat sessions that I've been doing around the topic truly of common sense, because common sense ain't common. But we're just having a lot of fun. It's a Saturday afternoon and a great opportunity to share and collaborate with you guys on various topics and subjects. I am totally open to anything that anyone would like to bring to the chat. My name is Terrence Caston. If you're in Sandusky, you know me as Terry. The rest of the world knows me as TC, and it's all good any way you call me. Just don't call me late to dinner. Today's going to be fun. I've got three really good topics, I think, to talk about. This is an open forum type session where I am simply sharing my opinion. It's just that. It's not necessarily right or wrong. It's just my opinion. But I'm sharing my opinion from a perspective of what I know and not necessarily what I think. So I like being able to share with others things that I've learned personally or things that I've observed, and I'd like to know if you're observing them as well. And so we use this session to have some Saturday dialogue. You're welcome to chime in. Always looking to bring people on live onto the stream and bring them into the conversation. So definitely love to have a few of you jump in live as I go through some of this, and I'll bring you on if you have some additional comments to share, because part of this is just us learning together. We're all doing this thing called life. Nobody has all the right answers. We're all trying to basically live our best lives, and a good way to do that is to hear from others things that they've done, so you don't have to go through the same mistakes or either learn on your own. So this is just a means of allowing us to collaborate and share in topics that I feel are important to those of us doing this thing called life. Today, again, is going to be interesting. This is my 6th episode. Looking forward to continuing this and developing something bigger from this. So for those that don't know, I am a public speaker and a wireless technologist. I've been at this thing for many years, probably coming up on 30 years now. I've had some amazing opportunities to speak to audiences of all sizes all around the world about technology. And so this year I wanted to expand on my capabilities of speaking and really just use them to have some dialogue about everyday life stuff. And I'm having a lot of fun doing this. I'm really enjoying you guys that are joining me on a regular basis. And I want to tell you, first and foremost, I really appreciate it. I don't know where this is going. We're building some things in the background on this, though. Should have a podcast rolling here shortly, as well as having this sitting up on a YouTube channel. And then we'll see where it goes from there. I'm just trying to live out some things that I've been wanting to do for a very long time, and just life got in the way. So here's a platform for me to expand on that, continue with my speaking skills, and more importantly, sharing knowledge with people that can make a difference in their lives. And that's really what it's all about. So today we're going to jump into 3 topics that I hope are interesting to you. I was with some colleagues a while back, and I found it so funny that we were discussing some of the very things that I'm going to talk about today, which really was around, give me a minute to kind of adjust this, which were around the topic of words, right? I had said some time ago that we as just individuals need to understand the power of the tongue. And I did a little clip called Watch Your Mouth. In that, it's really more about the power of words and the power that we give words. And quite frankly, what do words really mean? And why do they have so many different meanings? So, today we're going to talk about a topic that's probably crossed all of us at some point, which is cussing, right? Cussing, cursing, negatively speaking on someone, and more importantly, how the effects of cussing or cursing can affect the most valuable thing that we have, which is our children. So this ought to be an interesting topic because some of y'all are cussing connoisseurs, and some of us talk to our kids any kind of way. And so this is going to hopefully allow us to analyze the impact of that, as well as just really have some dialogue about what it is that you're doing. What are we really doing when we're cursing or cussing? Been around forever and shouldn't be anything new. Second thing I want to get into is a topic about, you are the company that you keep. We're all trying to do big things in life these days. We're all trying to move our careers to the next level, or we're trying to figure out what our careers are. And I just wanted us to really examine the topic of who's in your circle. Who's in your circle has a whole lot to do where you're going in life, whether you really understand it or not. And so I'm going to speak to that and hopefully, share some things with folks about being very proactive about who's in your circle and making sure that you use that to your ability to move yourself forward. And then last thing I want to talk about is something that, all of us in this 40 plus age group should be doing or probably is dealing with, and that's estate planning. We should be talking about this even sooner than that, but I think the majority of the people that I kind of float with are in that, probably 30 to 60 age group. And so this is an area that we should be having discussions in because A, everybody's going to die. B, if you're in this 40 to 50 age group, you're probably taking care of both children and parents. It's the inevitable thing that happens at this time in life. And so as we take care of other people and also prepare for people who may have to take care of us, estate planning, wills, living trust, those kinds of things are very important. And I can tell you that there's a lot of us who don't spend enough time in this area. And unfortunately, what ends up happening, and then when someone else dies, the burden of those of us living is caught up in having to deal with that because of the lack of planning. So we're going to talk about it. I am not an expert in it. I do have a living trust will because I had enough sense to at least inquire many years ago, knowing that I had built assets and that they needed to be properly taken care of. And I didn't need the courts dictating to my kids who got what. But this can be as simple as just a will or a living will. And we'll talk about the differences. Again, I'm not an expert. I did some internet searching. Again, I do have one myself. I've met with some law firms. I got about that much knowledge. My point is to spur in you the thought of, are you dealing with that? Have you dealt with that? Are you investigating that? Because ultimately our parents have to leave and we have to leave. And if it's in the correct order, they leave, we leave, and then our children leave. So we should be concerned about leaving our children right. And we should be talking to our parents in the event they haven't gotten this thing together and helping make sure that they put things together so it makes it easier when they do transition. Right? So pretty straightforward stuff. I think it's topics though that are pretty much on the minds of most of us in this age group. So let me first of all just say hello to a few folks. So I see some folks chiming in, and I just want to also always take the time to say hello because I really appreciate people joining. My boy Keith French out there, what's good? I hope the Porsche got home safely. Keith came by last week and we took the Panamera out and tried to blow the tires off of it. My cousin Ray and my boy Milo Lavelle and my cousin Katrina. Hey, Katrina, Katrina, it was Aunt Dorothy who sparked the whole estate planning conversation. And so you probably ought to know that because her and Uncle Harry don't play. So definitely looking forward to having her chime back into this thing later. Eddie Blanche, man, there's somebody from the past. Eddie, ain't heard from you in a minute, man. I hope all is well. Hope life is good. I know you got second little baby going on these days, man. Much love to you, boy. Hey, we trying to put together a T-Mobile reunion for the whole Southeast, so I'll get with you on that. Follow us on that, and hopefully we can get you up here. And I see Jeanette Ferguson and Michelle Lofties. Lots of folks out there. I just want to say, hey, what's up to everybody? And I appreciate y'all tuning in. Again, we're just here to have some dialogue. It's real easy. It ain't nothing complicated. It's just your boy TC having some fun and trying to share a little knowledge where it makes sense, right? So let's jump into this. My first subject is one that, like I said, I think everybody can relate to, and that's the power of words, right? So let's just kind of talk about that before I get into some of the words that we choose to give power to and what the origin of those words are in the first place. Words are important because everything that ever is or ever was normally starts with a thought and then is transferred to words, right? You think of something and then at some point you put that into words or you put that onto paper, and before you know it, you've created something. You've built a business. You've designed something. Everything around you, if you look around you right now, every object around you started out as somebody's thought, which some kind of way got communicated, most likely by words, put onto paper, got designed, got pitched, the whole 9 yards, right? So that's a very powerful thing. And then for those of us who are faith believers, we believe that God spoke everything that is into existence and used words to do that, used words to manifest the entire universe. So when we think about words, they are very powerful. They have great meanings. And again, biblically, it speaks about, truly understanding that life and death is in the power of your tongue, because what you say manifests itself. I like to think of it this way. The universe is listening. All right. The universe is listening, always listening. And so therefore, what you say matters. And how we say things matters. And we all have to deal with that in some shape, form, or fashion. Learning how to say things and learning what to say, because we're respecting the fact that words have power. Whether we give them the power or not, it is to the individual receiving those words that there is an action or a reaction to the action of you speaking it. So if we understand that first and foremost, the universe is always listening and therefore it is responding to our words. The second thing that is responding to your words is your own physical body. This is why we have confessions. This is why we talk to ourselves or motivate ourselves, because our words have meaning. Your body responds to your voice better than any voice on the planet. Did you know that? That's how people heal themselves. That's how people talk themselves into something. Your body responds to your voice and words better and more effectively than any other voice on the planet, other than God's voice, right? So words have meaning, words have power. And if we first frame the conversation that way, everything beyond it will make a little bit more sense as to why we need to be selective about the words that we use, right? I'm a firm believer, and those of you who have never read the book or seen the video, The Secret, it was a completely life-changing book for me in terms of truly understanding how things work. And so the reason I love The Secret so much is because it is beyond getting caught up in a faith, but yet it is biblically based and yet spoken in a manner that anybody can get. It takes what you've heard biblically and make it logically plain. And our ability to have the universe respond to us with words is just one of the things that God built into the earth. And because he has no respect of person, anyone who uses that methodology can get things to happen. So if you doubt that, think about this. If what we read biblically is just for us who are living a Christian lifestyle, people who aren't living that faith would not have materialistic things and things that come from the world. But that's not the case. You got atheists and sinners and people of all types who ultimately amass great things in the world and may not even believe in God whatsoever. That's because the rules that were put in place are not a respect of person. Those are just the things, those are the laws that God built into the universe, like the law of gravity. Doesn't care if you're a Christian or Buddha, nothing. If you jump off of this house, you are going to fall straight down. And so therefore, there are laws that have been put into the universe that have nothing to do with how you believe or who you believe. They are simply laws within the universe. And likewise, when we talk about the power of the tongue and we talk about the words that we use, the universe responds, people, to what you're saying if you put action behind the words. Why do I say that? You can't sit on your couch all day saying, I want a job, I want a job, I want a job, and not follow that up with action. If you do that and say that every day and follow that up with action, the universe will meet you when you get out the door. People will come your way. Things will shift around. Phone calls will come. You'll talk to somebody who will find out there is a job, and before you know it, you're getting a phone call. That's the universe responding to your words and action. But your words in and of themselves start something in motion. And this is why we need to be careful, because we are hearing our words. And if I say every day that I'm worthless and I'm no good and I'm sorry, then the very thing inside responds to that. And I begin to believe that. And then you turn around and wonder why things aren't happening. This is why I did the little episode called Watch Your Mouth. What are you saying? And then turning around and wondering why your world is the way it is. What are you saying? Are you saying that I don't never have, and it's so funny because when I pay attention to people who are in a different place in life or in a season in life where things aren't working, if I'm around them for a day, I can just about tell you why they're in the season, right? I don't think I'm worthy, or man, if I could just catch a break, if I ain't have bad luck, I wouldn't have no luck at all. They're saying things all day long. And then at the end of the night, trying to figure out why things aren't working. You truly are speaking things into existence, because words are real and they're powerful, and they break bones, and they are more powerful than sticks and stones and all of that. I don't care what the little nursery rhyme says. Words are far more powerful than any of those things. So when we talk about words, it's difficult to not examine how we can either build or tear people down, including ourselves, with our words. And if we're going to talk about people, let's talk about the most important people that any of us should have in our lives as we're parents, and it's our children, right? These are little human beings, little adults that we're building and developing, and the most effective way of shaping them is with our words. So I want to take a statement back. The universe is listening and your children are listening. Okay? So when we talk about who's listening, the universe is listening and your children are listening. Let's talk about what listening is. Listening is a voluntary state of receiving, right? Hearing is an involuntary state of receiving. I want you to think about that, because everybody that hears you is not listening. The mere fact that you got ears, eardrums, and all of the stuff working, you can hear. You sit in a room and hear 50 people talking simultaneously, but if I sit next to you and I'm talking to you, you're listening to me. So although you hear the noise in the room, you're listening to me. And with that being said, we then need to think about how people receive us and how we should be trying to receive people. We should be listening, not just hearing them. And we all been through this. Some point in your life, your parents were trying to tell you how to do something right, wrong, whatever. And some of us was hearing them, but we wasn't listening to them. And a lot of us have paid for that in life because we heard them, but we weren't listening to them. And then later in life, they tell you the same things, and now you're listening. And so although you've heard it your whole life, at some point you finally listen. Or this is the good one. Parents, we tell our kids something 50 million times, and then either a relative or a total stranger says something to them, and now they got an epiphany moment. Now they all of a sudden heard it, but you've been saying it for 15 years. So listening and hearing are two totally different things. And the point that I'm trying to make is, A, in order for us to really develop and learn, we need to listen. And then B, when we're speaking words, we need to be careful, because our children and those who we're trying to build around us are probably listening. So let's talk about that for a minute. I grew up in a household where my mom used profanity and dad, and it was commonplace. So I think you'll find that it's really interesting. Some of us grow up in households where that's commonplace. Others grow up in households where it's like, oh my God, right? I grew up in a household where that was commonplace. But the way those words were used were really more out of just conversation or frustration. One of the things that I noticed when I got older was I went to other people's houses where I heard those words used directly to impact and tear down. My mother never used profanity to directly impact and tear down. You could get on her last nerve and she'd say something that would, have something to do with that. She might use some very colorful words to tell you that you're getting on her nerves. She might threaten you and tell you that, if you do something, you about to get your butt whooped, but it was never a derogatory to you. And I say that because growing up, I went to other people's homes and I heard parents talk to their kids like talking to, not even a stranger on the street, a killer on the street, right? I've heard women call their daughters, and I got relatives who did this, call their daughters things that you would not call a dog. And in the process of calling themselves raising kids. Here's what disturbed me. To this day, those people grew up and called their kids derogatory things to them and then wonder why the kids don't excel and then wonder why the kids do the things that they do because they're listening to you and you are imparting into them all the wrong things when you're defining who they are with a word. How many times have we heard about guys being compared to their sorry fathers? How many times have I heard women say something to their daughters that was derogatory? Here's what blows my mind, that they probably did at that age. But yet, all of a sudden now we get to a certain place and, we ain't got no understanding of what a teenager is going through or what a teenager is doing. And in most cases, the teenager is going that route because when they were preteens and children, they heard you. And now they're teenagers living it out. And now you just don't know what to do. They out of control. All I ask yourself for everybody dealing with that, what were you saying in your household when they were at the most formative years? Believe it or not, the most impactful years for a child is 0 to 5. 0 to 5 is where most of a child's entire impression of life is built. 0 to 5. You need to be careful who's around your child from 0 to 5. You need to be careful what you're saying around your child from 0 to 5. Not that every other year don't matter, but 0 to 5, all the foundation for your child for life has been built in. So as we move forward and we talk about the words that we use, what are these words? I got to looking some of this stuff up. I was like, when you think about it, when a 4-letter word, who said it was bad? Why does it have power in the first place, right? And, there are numerous 4-letter words. I don't need to repeat them. Unfortunately, in this day and age, everybody using them. I don't think there's a record made from anybody under 20 that doesn't use some type of 4-letter word. That one gets me because in order to get the thing on the radio, they got to do the clean version, which is why I listen in the first place. And then I go get the music and then it's a whole nother song. I ain't figured that one out. I don't know if anybody else is struggling with that one, but that just blows me out. But that's the world we're in, right? And so using words that we define as profanity or cussing come from the origin of cursing. Now, what I found is that a lot of this are simply words that come out of our English language, which was being developed over the years from either a Latin or a German type descent. And much of the words, and I'm not going to get into all of these, go do your research for yourself. But if you never really research what is the foundation of cussing, of course, that comes from the word cursing. Some of it has biblical or religious connotations where you literally are saying something profound and negative to impact somebody or curse them. Others are words that had a different meaning, and then we stripped it down a little bit and basically took it and made a meaning or a word out of another word that doesn't necessarily keep the same kind of same type of basis, but has an origination in another word. The F word comes out of an originating word that talks about intercourse, right? But we add additional words to it. The MF word is really horrible. The MF word actually comes from not only having intercourse, but in slavery. Get this, slavery time, men were forced to sleep with their mothers. This is sick. So when you hear somebody, and Samuel Jackson just need to stop, when you hear somebody use that and you think about what that's really all about, that actually happened, right? And so all of the 4-letter words come from something of an original origin that probably had a meaning close to how it's being used, but we've decided to make it derogatory. I think the interesting thing about this is, as we as a culture have given these words power, we have defined that they give power in a negative manner. And so therefore they begin to take on power when you use them. You know, you can go to certain countries and use certain words and they don't have the same meaning. Something that some colleagues and I were just talking about at dinner the other night was, you know, beyond the 4-letter words are just words in general that we might be using and not know, right? Now, we ain't gonna give nobody the pass on the N word, but we had that conversation and about how we've given it power. One minute we give it power to want to kill somebody. The next minute it's endearing. Craziest thing in the world, but we do it, right? The other thing is when we define other people's sexualities. You know, we were at the table honestly trying to figure out what's bad and what's good when describing someone who is not heterosexual. You know, that's a tricky one. You know, there are a number of words that have been used, and really what we needed at the table was someone that was not heterosexual to explain to us so that we knew what is the correct term to use, because we've heard so many things a lot of people just really don't know. You know, Black people went through this for years, right? We were colored, and one day we became Black. Right. And I've talked to some of my friends who honestly were still concerned or not clear. So what does that mean? Can we call y'all color? Is that a bad thing? You know, in this day and age, it is, because it has a negative root to where it came from. Something else that came up was, and I could probably talk to many of my family members back in Sandusky, where I think it's probably the most integrated city in America these days. But someone brought up the term mulatto. And I think it was one of my daughters that said, that's a negative term though. Now, I didn't even know that. And I was like, oh, okay. You know, and I think the correct way to describe that is mixed race. But at some point we've used that word. And so I think that as we think about words and the power of those words, this kind of helps us in terms of understanding other people. And this is why I say it's so important to talk to people. There are people who are not necessarily racist, but just naive. They don't know, right? I'm not giving nobody a pass when you know what you're talking about. But I'm simply saying that because we determine the power of a word, people can take words one way and you see it another. And so words are such a tricky place to play, in the fact that they can mean whatever. It's as bad as spelling words, how words can be spelled differently and be the same words. Or when we take letters and pronounce letters in a certain way that unless you knew that you were supposed to pronounce it that way, who in the world would knew PH, had an F sound, but, here we are. So it is just one more thing that we have to put some serious thought in order to ensure that we A, understand the power of words, and B, understand the power of using those words. I was thinking as I was researching this that just like we use these words, in most cases we use them as, just expressing ourselves. The kids use them, the songs use them. You're expressing yourselves. And so once again, we give it power. But if it's deemed to be something negative, I think what we should be thinking about is how does it affect the person who is listening to it, right? Listening to it. And so therefore, if it has the ability to negatively impact those listening to it, then maybe we should choose our words, right? And if we have a list of bad words, can we get a list of good words? We know all the bad words. We take a foreign language and the first thing we do is learn how to say the bad words. Can we get a list of good words and equally incorporate good words into our vocabulary when we're talking to our kids, when we're talking to strangers, when we're talking to our spouse? I think it would be the bare minimal balance that we need as we learn the power of words and how they shape everything around us. It's important then that we choose them wisely and that we understand the impact of using them. Because at the end of the day, if this is a way in which you can control making something better, I think the majority of us would want to do that than make something worse. I don't think there's been a parent alive who curses or cusses at their kids, I hope not, with the intentions of permanently damaging them. I don't think there's a spouse alive who curses or cusses at their spouse with the intentions of permanently damaging them. The downside of that, though, is words have the ability to do that, whether you mean it or not. And so that's what's so dangerous about words. It's not like something you can take back. Even sorry don't always cut it with a word, y'all, right? You can literally say something that can never come back, that changes someone forever. I don't know of anything else that can do that other than words, right? Other than the power of words. So food for thought. Here's what I want to do as I'm learning about how I want to run this. I'd like to open the floor up for any comments on that subject that you'd like to share with the group that's here actively or those who will be watching this later around the power of words, cussing, as we call it in the Black community. I was talking to some of my white friends, they call it cursing. And then somebody said cursing wasn't the use of profane words as much as it was using God's name in vain. So she grew up in a household where cursing was, you said something that, as I read today, they really just called it blasphemy, where you use God's name in vain. But cussing, believe it or not, is just a derogatory word that arrived out of cursing. And they are all words that we use to negatively impact someone's life. So let me pause for a moment. Here's how I'd like to try this. And we're just trying stuff, y'all. Everybody knows I'm still just toying with this thing. If there is someone who would like to share, what I'd like you to do, so I'm not trying to pull people up on video that might be having a bad hair day. First of all, when you're on the CS File show, get your hat, because it's Saturday. And if you're having a bad hair day, break out your Hugo Boss and roll with it, right? So is there anyone who would like to share comments around the topics of words, the power of words, or even how you've used these words or not use them to improve your life, right? Let me just see if I can get if anybody wants to join. And I promise I won't tap anybody that doesn't want to be tapped, because then that brings you up on video. I see a lot of people in and out. I think what people do is just trying to kind of jump in and then jump back, and I get that. Let me see. I see you out there, Ann. I see you, girl. Okay. I'm not going to bother y'all too much. I don't see anybody saying they want to chat. All right. So this is cool. So next topic that I want to ramble about just a little bit is the topic of the company you keep, right? So many of us, or all of us, depending on the season that you're in your life, are looking to improve ourselves, better ourselves, and go to the next level. And a lot of that has to do, if you haven't figured it out, with the company that you keep. Now, everybody's heard the old adage, birds of the same feather flock together. There's probably truth to that. Oh, wait a minute. Bill said you want to talk about cussing. Okay. So let me hold on. So my boy Bill, and Bill, I'm glad you joined. I told Ann last week, I said, you got to get Bill to jump in here. I'd love to hear some of his thoughts. So let's bring you in on this, Bill, because we done all done some cussing some now. And I ain't gonna lie, when I'm with the wrong crowds, when I'm with my boys, we always slip a couple of good ones in there. So, but so I've just added you, Bill. I think all you have to do is accept it, and then you should be able to come right up. And we'll take some comments from Mr. Bill Lamb here. And you might have to help him because let's see. So I'm just waiting on you, Bill. It says adding.
No.
I don't know if I can hear you well, Bill. You got the headset you on?
Oh, no, I don't. There's the
Okay, well, just get close to the phone. Let's see if we can make this work. I'm still experimenting with stuff, too. And I hear feedback.
Is that better? Hold on. Well, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think I can go on the actual phone.
Yeah, there's a feedback going on.
Oh, well.
I can hear you, but we can check your comments.
Well, what I was saying was, everything you were saying was absolutely correct. The power of the will. The power is given by
Bill, we can't hear you, man.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Well, my Costco was horrible for me. I don't know about you. I can't even take a phone up. Let's get you to the next one, man. It's very difficult. Total feedback loop on top. Bill, I appreciate you trying to get in there, man. Yeah, I don't know where you're at, but I think that connection is not going to work for you here. Subject. I think it's a very worthy subject. It's something that we don't talk about. We just do. And it may be even more beneficial for those who are rearing younger children as we think about the power of these words with those who are still raising kids, because you got time to think about that, right? And those of us, if you've already raised some and done it, then you got time to think about the impact and maybe right that thing by talking to younger people who might not understand the power of that as they're raising children. Sometimes parents are just doing what they know to do, doing the best thing they know how. Sometimes they're doing all they know to do, which is what mom and them did. And the first thing about becoming an adult is figuring out your parents wasn't always right? So, temperament. So my wife also talks about temperament and tone, which she stays on me about. Temperament and tone, absolutely, along with the words, because you can say something the wrong way. This is my biggest challenge, is constantly thinking about how I'm saying something, because out of just the nature and my energy, I have a tendency to come very forceful at things, very direct. And so that's been a life challenge for me to work on tone and to keep my temperament to a place to where the message doesn't get lost in my tone, therefore defeating the whole purpose of the conversation. So along with words, temperament and tone, absolutely critical. And I think that one of the places I can just be transparent where I have learned to use that outside of the home, because my wife drilled me about that for so many years as an area that I needed to improve, that I was able to use those same skills that I've started to apply at home in the work environment, where I wasn't even as cautious of the fact that my tone could come over the wrong way. And ultimately you become ineffective in getting things done. If you're saying the right things and your tone is wrong, people won't receive. People won't what? Listen. So if the goal is to not just be talking for the sake of talking, but talking so that people listen and learn, then you want to basically think about your tone so that they're receiving it in the proper manner. That way you're not wasting your breath just talking. Anybody managing a team of people, that's critical. And again, I've been able to transition what I've tried to learn at home to work and try and practice that there as well. But then equally with your kids, you know, it is, and I'll say this might be a father thing. I had to learn, and I'm still learning, how to talk to them and not at them. We do that by the near fact that, you know, we're the disciplinarians and so forth. And it's easy to do that and not think about the impact that it actually has with them. So Ann says, true. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Yep. It's our home mantra. Still in active practice. Totally not perfect. My toes are raised as well. And so same here, right? Always a work in progress, but absolutely understand that impact and know that it is something that you must do if you want your communication to be effective, right? So we can all take a little blame in that around here. Again, and I can speak for myself, my tone has been one that I have had to seriously proactively work on for some time, and I'm still working on that. So it's good stuff, though. But it's important. This is important stuff. It's the foundation of good communication. That goes with everything, be it from the home to your career to Joe Blow in the street to ministry to anything. Without good communication, you're pretty much worthless to humans, okay? It's so critical. And understanding how these words line up to that means the world. No question. All right, so let me stay on time here, y'all, because I'm running up on my time. Wanted to briefly talk about, again, words and communication skills, not only affecting our home, but in our careers. But more importantly, as we think about being better people, being our best at our careers and in life in general, a big influence or an impact to that is the company that you keep, right? The company that you keep. Who is in your inner circle? If you want to see your future, take account to the 5 people you hang out with the most and the last 10 books you read. 5 people that you hang out with the most and the last 10 books you read have a major impact on what your tomorrow looks like. Here's the beauty of all of that. You can change it. You can delete some people out your life. You can find some better books to read, which books is about knowledge, right? And I'm going to just put this out here. Y'all need to be reading something other than the Bible. And the Bible is the greatest book ever been read, ever been written. But you need to be reading something other than the Bible down here in the earth suit. At the end of the day, you need to be able to sustain yourself here, impact and empower people here. And so therefore, what we put into our bodies and into our minds has to be a combination of all of that. Well-rounded, well-balanced. That's how we progress and move and achieve. And so what you're reading, just like who you're keeping company with, will have a major impact on your success, on your family life, right? Think about it. Guys, you can't roll with your boy that you grew up with in high school and in college. He's still single and you married. You can't kick it with him every day. And if you do, something's going to give. Girls, you can't kick it with your same girls, all these single chicks in your marriage every week without your marriage taking a hit. Who you keep company with has a great impact on all levels of your life. And sometimes we don't put enough emphasis on that. And that's why it's important that we proactively seek out people who will aid to us, right? Aid to us, aid in what we're doing instead of take away from what we're doing. You have to proactively seek that out. You know, growing up, you befriended people because of just peer pressure, circles, y'all in the same group, whatever. As adults, we should be proactively thinking and determining what groups of people we hang with, who you let in your inner circle. You know, I got a lot of associates, I got a few friends, right? A lot of associates, great associates, work associates, church associates, people from round the way. I got just a few friends by design because everybody don't belong in your inner court, right? Everybody don't belong in your house. You don't belong in everybody else's house. Some people are in your life to be there for a certain reason, and that don't mean everybody get to come into the inner court. So who you keep company with has a great determination of where you're headed in life and the current impact of your life. If you really are not liking your lifestyle, first thing you need to do is assess who's in your immediate circle. You can probably begin eliminating people and improve your lifestyle pretty quickly. Right? It's the same thing when we have kids in college and they're trying to figure out what they want to do in life. One of the best ways for them to understand career choices is to find someone who is doing that thing and spend a day in life with them. Right? You want to be a news broadcaster, then go hang out with a news broadcaster. You want to be a police officer, go hang out with a police officer. Right? Why? Because the influence of that has a great determination on the trajectory of your life. And so is it when we have negative people in our lives. We're wondering why nothing's working or we're doing down because the people around you are in that same boat. They're probably thinking like you. And normally what I found is when things weren't really working in my life, I had to change how I was thinking. And that's why we read books. And that's why we go to seminars. And that's why we get information from people who are smarter than us. If something's not working, then what you're doing is probably aiding in that, right? It's the the insanity rule. Keep doing something the same way, expecting, different expectations. That's kind of the same thing when you're around the same people who probably are aiding in the foolishness that you're thinking or the incorrect thinking that you have. If you surround yourself with people like you, then they'll aid you. They'll always comfort you and make you think that is right. All I'm simply saying is if that's working for you, then work it. But if it's not working for you, start taking a survey of who's around you. How do they think? Just because they think like you don't necessarily mean it. In most cases, if people think like you, agree to everything that you do, they probably aren't the ones you want in your circle anyways. That's called being the biggest fish in your pond. Another dangerous place to be. If everybody that you hang with pretty much have nothing to give you and all you do is give to them, that should be a limited circle. You need to be in a circle of friends where you can learn from them. If you're always the biggest fish in the pond, you're probably in the wrong pond. Find some new ponds. You need to be around some people that you can grow up to, that you can learn from, that you have a level of respect about, that you can actually pull from them as well as share back with them. Because, one thing about people who are really in motion in life, they're not only giving back, but they're still learning. They give and they learn. They give and they learn. So if you find yourself around people who are at a certain level and they don't want to hear nothing you got to say, wrong group again. Because anybody at any level that's not willing to learn, there's probably some limited things coming down the pipe for them as well. So it's about understanding who's in your circle. It is so critical because we are influenced by people and we have the ability to equally influence those people. And I'm not saying that you can't hang around people who are doing less than you. That's not what this is about. This is about people who at least have your same mindset, your same goals, that understand where you're trying to go and can support that. That can be of an aid to you. That can be additional eyes and ears for you. Versus people who simply suck you down and have nothing to bring to the table. Food for thought. I've personally had to evaluate that. We even do the same thing in social media, at least I do. If I go through my friends list and find I just got a whole lot of negative people on there, I just silently delete people. And I'm not talking about people that don't agree with you. People that don't agree with you are good for you. You need people who will debate you. You need people who will challenge you. If your social media list is full of friends who think just and only like you have done yourself a disservice. Period. If in your life, the only people around you are people who think, act, and speak just like you, you've done yourself a disservice. So make sure you take the time to think about who's in your circle, how those people will be affecting you, can affect you, and how you guys can grow from each other, right? Metal sharpens metal. I want to talk about my last subject here in the next 10, 15 minutes, which is estate planning. Once again, I am not at all an expert in this area, but it is a very right now subject. And I say that because in my own personal life, my father and my stepfather have passed. Back in my hometown, I've seen many elderly ministers of churches who recently passed in the last 10 years. And in that, I saw, certain things with their businesses that, didn't have the best of planning, no exit strategies, or just not good planning, as if we're never going to leave here. And so I thought it was a good subject after my Aunt Dorothy mentioned it to me, and wanted to at least touch on it. The purpose of touching on this is for you to go do your research, for you to go find professionals who can really help you with this, and make sure that you have in place both for yourself and for parents who are about to leave here before us. If the flow works like it's supposed to, if they leave before us, you want to ensure that there's no drama when you leave or when they leave. And one thing that I can guarantee you, this ain't my opinion, is that all of us are going to die. That I guarantee you. So with that being said, it shouldn't be something that we just don't deal with until all of a sudden somebody's on their deathbed and you try to figure out how we're going to bury them, and can I get Pookie and Ray and them to pitch in so we can figure this out. It should not be about, so-and-so has passed and now we over here fighting over the stuff. It should not be even for your own children to have to figure out what mom and dad wanted me to have versus you to have. And now that they're gone, we down here in just total turmoil because I always wanted such and such and you was his favorite and I was supposed to get this and that. That's real, people. That's real. That's happening every day. And I don't care if you don't own nothing but a toothbrush and a pair of shoes. If you have children, you need to tell them you get the toothbrush, you get the pair of shoes. Otherwise, what ends up happening when people die and haven't planned properly, the courts step in. So, heaven forbid that all you own is a toothbrush and a pair of shoes. Most of us own something when we leave. And you should care enough about those that you leave behind to ensure that there are clear instructions on how those things should be taken care of. You can equally put in place wills that affect right now. So you've got wills and you've got trust. The will is simple. It really is instructions on how you want things done. You can also do a living will that is about, in the event something happens to me right now, here's how I want it taken care of. And then you've got this trust. And the trust is about now taking all of your possessions and putting them in the trust and then determining who runs the trust. That's the estate. That's your stuff. And so what that does is, in the event you pass, or when you pass, the state or the courts don't own your stuff and decide who gets what once they figure it out. But immediately that living trust now takes over, and that can be taken care of. That keeps everything as calm as possible in an already tough time. And so, again, not an expert in that area whatsoever. We have a living trust where I've willed my things into the trust, and we've got all that separated with the kids and things. We've done it for our parents. These are things that also need to be updated. So from time to time, you need to probably get back on the phone with a lawyer and go through them to make amendments and changes. These also change state by state. So don't just think you can write something on a piece of paper and say that's valid. Check with the laws in your state to determine what can and cannot be done. And then there's all kinds of legal counsel out there. The purpose of this conversation is just to spark in you, have you dealt with that, right? Have you dealt with trust? Here's something that comes out of that. Do your mama and daddy have insurance to be buried? Forget the will. Have we made sure that our aging parents have basic insurance to be buried? I literally just saw something like that happen not too long ago, where somebody had to literally raise funds to bury a loved one. While your parents are here, please make sure that you can bury them. Right? It's tough enough to lose them. It's another thing to lose them and not even be able to lay them to rest. And that's better done while people are living than after they're gone, and then it's a fire drill. There's all kinds of programs out there. That ain't rocket science. It don't break the bank. There are ways of, at least at bare minimal, figuring out how to make sure that our parents can have a proper burial. And then beyond that, if you own anything at all, you need to be thinking about or looking into some type of a will, some kind of instructions to leave behind for the people that you love that you're going to leave here. And nobody knows when they're leaving, but one thing I know is that all of us are leaving here. All right. Now, this is a subject that a lot of us want to wait to have. And I think the problem with that, this is another thing that I've found, is that, if you wait to have this conversation with your aging parents, you might be talking to your parents in their right mind, or their best mind, shall I say. Maybe in their best mind at that moment, but it might not be their right mind, right? It's best that you do that sooner, where parents are still truly clothed in their right mind and can give clear and concise instructions and information. Because if we wait and something happens, heaven forbid, then you're fighting for the day that you catch them in their best mind and not necessarily their right mind. So again, it's just a part of life. If you're in this 40 to probably 60-year-old range, you're dealing with your kids and you're dealing with your parents. And, I think after I got to this place, I began to understand that everybody's there, and that's just part of life, right? That's what happens. Because at one moment it seemed like everybody was dealing with that. And I'm like, wow, how's everybody dealing with that? That comes with being our age, just a part of it. So, take care of that. Take care of your loved ones. Take care of those that you might leave behind. And more importantly, take care of yourself. These are very simple things that we can do to have a better life. Keeping the right company in our lives. Preparing to leave this life, because you're always going to leave. And then more importantly, picking and choosing the words that we use to impact those that are in our lives, in our workplace, in our family place, in any environment that we come into, because words have power and the universe is listening, and the universe will respond to the things that you're saying. And if you put action behind it, you truly can shape your life. I do not believe that we are simply here and being masterfully moved around like puppets by God. I don't believe that. We are free moral agents. We can choose. We can choose to serve him. We can choose not. We can choose to go left. We can choose to go right. So that tells me that we are responsible for us. And we should be thinking about how all of that works, starting with our words, starting with our actions, starting with our actual will. What is it that we're willing? What you think about is what you become. So what are you thinking about? What are you thinking about these days? Parents need to be clear. You're not trying to kill them by discussing these things. That's true. That's right, man. I don't think there's a better audience to talk to than parents, but it is also probably just a fear for folks. And if you're talking about the estate planning, that parents may have some apprehension that maybe you're trying to get them up out of here sooner. But no, we absolutely want them to understand that this is about just doing what is best for everybody involved, because those are just inevitable events that have to happen. So, why would you not plan for when food is going to run out at your house, right? Yeah. Fear that leads to that. Absolutely. Right. Again, it's a plan that we should all think about. We we would plan for anything else. If you drive in your car and the gas hand is almost down to E, meaning that's the end, it's empty, it's the end, you would start planning. You'd start looking at your mileage and calculating where the gas station is. That's just like life. You start life on full, and at some point you're in your 50s, and that's halfway. And then sometime you're over here around 70s and 80s. And, you know, if we're blessed, maybe you get the 90s. But at some point, the hand is going to be on E, which in the life, you know, scenario means the end. In your car, it's empty. But either way, at that point, you start planning. Now, mind you, when we leave, we can't refuel and stay here, but you can refuel, or shall I say, if you are filled, you can go somewhere else. Either way, you begin planning. You begin thinking about, what do I need to do here if I want to keep moving, right? For those of us with faith and religion, we be trying to make sure we right with the Lord. But more importantly, I got some things that need to happen in the natural. So we should be planning, and it shouldn't be no static about that. Shouldn't be no fear. And the key to that is you don't wait till you're on E to do that planning. You do that planning probably when you're on half, you know, maybe a little before that. And here's the thing, young people, do a lot of the stuff we're talking about sooner than later, and your life will be so much better. We can't dare think about these things in our 30s, but we should. Just like financial planning. My God, if I'd have had enough sense to plan hard, fast, and furious in my 30s, what my bank account would look like now in my 50s. But we just, you know, we do what we do. Live and learn. That's for sure. So that's good stuff. So take that into consideration. You know, this is about life improvements and dealing with life head on, because guess what? It's just common sense. These things happen. It's a part of the game. And ultimately, we have to plan accordingly because they are inevitable. All right? So plan for your estates. Pick and choose wisely those who you keep in your inner circle. And then ultimately, choose your words wisely, because the power of words go beyond most of our understanding. Pick and choose your words wisely. All right. Well, that's all I got for y'all today. It's 4:02, and